The USS Gerald R. Ford's flight deck erupts in coordinated chaos. 200 autonomous drones launch simultaneously, their turbine engines screaming across the South China Sea. Target: the Chinese Type 003 Fujian carrier battle group, 400 miles southeast. This isn't just another naval exercise. $50 billion of American naval power versus $15 billion in Chinese steel. The winner controls the world's most critical shipping lane. Every container ship, every oil tanker, every supply line between Asia and the West runs through these waters. The drones climb to 30,000 feet, invisible to radar, carrying enough firepower to sink an entire fleet. But China had prepared for this exact scenario. The attack begins with the MQ-25 Stingray tanker drones. These aerial gas stations extend the strike range to 1,200 nautical miles, turning the entire South China Sea into America's hunting ground. Each Stingray carries 15,000 pounds of fuel, enough to keep the attack drones airborne for 8 hours of sustained combat. Behind them, the XQ-58 Valkyrie loyal wingmen accelerate to Mach 0.85. Each Valkyrie carries 2 LRASM anti-ship missiles. The long-range anti-ship missile doesn't need GPS or human guidance. Its AI brain can identify a carrier from 200 miles away, even through heavy jamming. The warhead weighs 1,000 pounds. One hit can cripple a destroyer. 3 hits will sink a carrier. Coordinating the entire swarm, MQ-9 Reapers process satellite targeting data in real time. Their sensors can track a tennis ball from 50,000 feet. Today, they're tracking something much larger. The Fujian carrier displaces 80,000 tons. At 1,000 feet long, it's impossible to hide. The swarm tactics are overwhelming. 50 drones per carrier, attacking from multiple vectors simultaneously. The Chinese point defenses can't engage them all. Even if they destroy 70% of the incoming threats, the remaining 30% will complete the mission. 3 American carrier strike groups launch simultaneously. The USS Gerald R. Ford from the east, the USS Ronald Reagan from the north, the USS Carl Vinson from the southwest. 600 drones total, converging on a single target. The largest coordinated drone assault in naval history. Real-time AI coordination eliminates human decision delays. No radio calls to admirals. No requests for permission to engage. The drones communicate through encrypted data links, sharing targeting information at the speed of light. When one drone identifies a threat, every drone in the swarm knows about it within milliseconds. The Chinese radar operators aboard the Type 055 destroyer Nanchang detect the incoming swarm at 180 miles. The countdown begins. Multiple air contacts, bearing 045, range 180 nautical miles. The radar operator reports to the bridge. Estimated 200 plus small, fast-moving targets. The Fujian's captain knows exactly what he's facing. American drone swarms, the scenario his fleet has trained for repeatedly. But training and reality are different things. The destroyer's HQ-9 surface-to-air missiles have a maximum range of 120 miles. The drones are still too far away. The Type 1130 close-in weapon systems can fire 10,000 rounds per minute, creating a wall of tungsten. But they need the targets within 2 miles. Electronic warfare specialists begin jamming GPS signals and data links. If they can blind the drones, the attack fails. But American military GPS is encrypted and hardened against jamming. The civilian signals disappear. The military signals remain strong. The KJ-600 airborne early warning aircraft orbiting 200 miles behind the fleet directs the defensive response. Its radar can track 100 targets simultaneously. Today, it's tracking 200. The system is overwhelmed. J-35 stealth fighters scramble from the Fujian's deck, 12 aircraft maximum, against 200 incoming drones. The math doesn't work. Shore-based DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missiles launch from Hainan Island. These carrier killers travel at Mach 10, too fast for any defense system, but they're targeting the wrong ships. The American carriers are 800 miles away, safely beyond the DF-21D's range. The drones are expendable. The carriers are not. The first wave of American drones enters the Chinese defensive envelope. HQ-9 missiles streak upward, their radar seekers locked onto the largest targets. The MQ-25 tankers, heavy with fuel, can't maneuver like fighters. 40% of the first wave disappears in brilliant orange explosions. But 60% survive, and 60% of 200 drones is still 120 drones, each carrying enough firepower to mission-kill a warship. The Chinese fleet braces for impact. The HQ-9 missiles climb through 40,000 feet, their active radar seekers painting targets across the sky. Each missile carries a 180-pound warhead designed to shred aircraft at close range. The Chinese destroyers fire in rapid succession, 16 missiles from the lead destroyer, 12 from the second, 8 from the third, 36 interceptors racing toward the American swarm.
The explosions begin at 60,000 feet. Orange fireballs bloom against the blue sky as MQ-25 tankers disintegrate under direct hits. Debris rains into the ocean, but the smaller Valkyrie drones slip through the gaps, their reduced radar signatures making them harder to track.
The Type 1130 close-in weapon systems activate as the surviving drones descend to attack altitude. These 6-barreled Gatling guns fire 11,000 rounds per minute. Each round is a tungsten penetrator moving at 3,500 feet per second. The sound is deafening. The muzzle flashes create a continuous wall of fire around each ship. Tungsten tracers streak across the water in deadly arcs. The first wave of Valkyrie drones flies directly into this metal storm. Drone after drone explodes in mid-air, their composite airframes no match for tungsten penetrators. The ocean surface churns with falling debris. But the Chinese gunners face an impossible mathematics problem. 11,000 rounds per minute sounds overwhelming until you're engaging 120 targets simultaneously. Each gun can only track one target at a time. The drones are attacking from multiple vectors: north, south, east, west. High altitude, sea skimming, diving attacks. The defensive fire spreads thin. Electronic warfare becomes critical. Chinese jamming stations flood the radio spectrum with interference. GPS signals disappear completely within a 100-mile radius of the fleet. Commercial satellites lose contact with ground stations. The electromagnetic environment becomes toxic. The American drones adapt. Their inertial navigation systems take over when GPS fails. Terrain-following radar guides the sea-skimming missiles toward their targets. The AI brains don't need constant communication with human operators. They were programmed for this exact scenario. The KJ-600 airborne early warning aircraft becomes the Chinese fleet's eyes and ears. Flying 200 miles behind the action, its powerful radar tracks the incoming threats and coordinates the defense. The aircraft's crew works frantically, calling out target bearings and altitudes to the fleet's weapon systems. Multiple sea skimmers, bearing 090, altitude 50 feet, range 15 miles, the radar operator reports. Estimate 30 inbound missiles. But the KJ-600 becomes a target itself. 3 XQ-58 Valkyrie drones break off from the main attack and climb toward the early warning aircraft. The KJ-600 has no defensive weapons. Its escort fighters are too far away. The crew has 90 seconds to live. J-35 stealth fighters launch from the Fujian's electromagnetic catapults every 30 seconds. 12 fighters total against a swarm designed to overwhelm exactly this kind of defense. Each J-35 carries 6 air-to-air missiles, 72 missiles maximum, against 120 remaining drones. The J-35s engage at maximum range. Their PL-15 missiles have a 200-mile reach, but the drone swarm is already inside that envelope. The fighters fire everything they have in the first pass. 72 missiles streak toward the American drones. The Valkyrie drones don't try to evade. They're not designed for air-to-air combat. They're designed to deliver their payload and die in the process. 43 drones disappear under the Chinese missile barrage, but 77 survive. And 77 LRASM anti-ship missiles are more than enough to destroy a carrier battle group. Shore-based DF-21D missiles finally reach their targets, but they're targeting the wrong coordinates. The American carriers withdrew 200 miles during the drone transit time. The ballistic missiles slam into empty ocean, creating massive waterspouts but hitting nothing. The Chinese fleet realizes the truth too late. This isn't a carrier versus carrier battle. It's a new kind of warfare. Expendable drones launched from standoff range, designed to overwhelm traditional naval defenses through sheer numbers. The surviving American drones begin their final attack runs. LRASM missiles separate from their carriers and dive toward the Chinese ships. Each missile weighs 2,500 pounds and carries a 1,000-pound warhead. The Chinese close-in weapon systems engage desperately, but they're designed to stop aircraft, not missiles traveling at 600 miles per hour, just 50 feet above the waves. The first LRASM impacts the Fujian's flight deck at 0847 hours local time. The explosion penetrates 3 decks and ignites aviation fuel. Secondary explosions follow within seconds. The trap was closing. But the Chinese fleet had one final card to play. Deep beneath the South China Sea, Type 095 nuclear attack submarines had been waiting in silence for 18 hours. Their crews knew the American battle plan before the first drone launched. Chinese intelligence had intercepted the encrypted communications between the carrier strike groups. The trap was already set. At 0849 hours, 3 Chinese submarines simultaneously broke the surface 400 miles from the American carriers. Their vertical launch tubes opened like deadly flowers. Inside each tube, a DFZF hypersonic glide vehicle waited on its rocket booster. These weapons travel at Mach 8. No existing defense system can intercept them. The submarine commanders had precise coordinates for all 3 American carrier strike groups. Satellite reconnaissance had tracked their movements for weeks. The USS Gerald R. Ford, USS Ronald Reagan, and USS Carl Vinson were exactly where Chinese intelligence predicted they would be. 12 DFZF missiles launched within 30 seconds. Each missile carries a 2,000-pound conventional warhead designed specifically to penetrate aircraft carrier flight decks. The warheads are tungsten penetrators that can punch through 6 feet of reinforced steel before detonating. The missiles climb to 100,000 feet before separating from their boosters. The hypersonic glide vehicles begin their unpredictable flight paths toward the American fleet. They weave through the atmosphere like deadly serpents, changing direction every few seconds to defeat tracking radars. Simultaneously, coordinated cyber attacks begin targeting American satellite communications. Chinese hackers, working from underground facilities in Guangzhou, launch malware specifically designed to disrupt military GPS satellites. The attacks succeed partially. 3 of 12 GPS satellites go offline. Navigation accuracy drops from 3 feet to 30 feet. The American carriers detect the submarine launches immediately, but detecting a hypersonic missile and stopping it are completely different problems. The Aegis combat systems aboard the escort destroyers track the incoming threats but calculate a 0% intercept probability. The missiles are simply too fast and too maneuverable. Multiple hypersonic contacts inbound? The radar operator aboard the USS Gettysburg reports. Estimated impact in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the Gerald R. Ford Strike Group, faces an impossible decision. Her ships can't intercept the incoming missiles, but they can try to minimize the damage. She orders maximum evasive maneuvers and activates every defensive system simultaneously. The Ford's Ram missile launchers fire everything they have. 21 rolling airframe missiles streak upward, trying to intercept weapons traveling 3 times faster than anything they were designed to engage. The physics don't work. The Ram missiles can't catch targets moving at Mach 8. Electronic warfare becomes critical. American jamming systems flood the radio spectrum, trying to disrupt the Chinese missiles' terminal guidance systems. But the DFZF glide vehicles don't rely on radio guidance. They use inertial navigation systems hardened against electromagnetic interference. The first hypersonic missile impacts the USS Gerald R. Ford's flight deck at 0854 hours. The tungsten penetrator punches through the flight deck, the hangar deck, and 3 more levels before detonating in the ship's ammunition storage area. The explosion kills 340 sailors instantly and ignites aviation fuel throughout the forward section of the ship. The Ford's damage control teams respond within seconds, but the fires spread faster than they can contain them. Secondary explosions rock the ship as stored missiles cook off in the intense heat. The electromagnetic catapults lose power. Flight operations cease immediately. The USS Ronald Reagan takes 2 direct hits. The first missile destroys the island's superstructure, killing the captain and most of the senior officers. The second penetrates the engine room, causing massive flooding. The Reagan begins listing to starboard as seawater pours through the hull breach. But the Chinese submarines made a fatal mistake. They revealed their positions when they launched. American P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, orbiting 200 miles away, immediately detected the submarine signatures. The hunters became the hunted. Within minutes, Mark 48 ADCAP torpedoes from USS Virginia-class submarines converge on the Chinese boats. The Type 095 submarines attempt to dive and evade, but they're too close to the surface. 2 submarines explode in massive underwater detonations. The third escapes, damaged but alive. The American fleet begins emergency withdrawal procedures. The Gerald R. Ford, her flight deck compromised and fires raging below, can no longer conduct air operations. Escort destroyers form a protective screen as the damaged carriers limp toward friendly ports. Chinese reinforcements appear on the horizon. DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missiles launch from mainland bases. J-20 stealth fighters scramble from Hainan Island. The Type 003 Fujian, despite taking multiple LRASM hits, remains operational and begins launching her own aircraft.
Admiral Chen realizes the truth. This engagement has escalated beyond anyone's control. Nuclear-powered warships from 2 superpowers are exchanging fire in international waters. The world teeters on the edge of global conflict.
The South China Sea erupts in flames as both fleets withdraw, leaving wreckage floating on the waves. Both fleets withdraw after catastrophic losses on all sides. The numbers tell the brutal story. 60% of the American drone fleet lies scattered across the ocean floor. 360 autonomous aircraft, worth $2.8 billion, destroyed in 18 minutes of combat. The USS Gerald R. Ford limps toward Guam with her flight deck cracked open and 340 sailors dead. The USS Ronald Reagan takes on water through a massive hull breach, her crew fighting desperately to keep her afloat. The Chinese losses are equally devastating. The Type 003 Fujian carrier lists heavily to port, 3 LRASM impacts having torn through her hull below the waterline. Her escort destroyers burn from stem to stern. The Type 055 destroyer Nanchang breaks in half and sinks within 20 minutes, taking 280 crew members with her. For the first time since World War II, nuclear powers have engaged in direct naval combat. The implications ripple across the globe within hours. The South China Sea becomes a no-man's water for 72 hours, as both sides establish 200-mile exclusion zones around their damaged fleets. Global shipping routes collapse instantly. Every container ship, oil tanker, and cargo vessel between Singapore and Tokyo stops dead in the water. Lloyd's of London declares the South China Sea a war zone, voiding all insurance policies. Oil prices spike 400% as traders panic over potential supply disruptions. The Shanghai Stock Exchange crashes, losing 30% of its value in the first trading day. The Dow Jones follows suit, dropping 2,800 points, as investors realize the global economy depends entirely on shipping lanes now controlled by burning warships and floating debris. Emergency sessions convene at the United Nations, but the damage is already done. Both the American and Chinese governments face impossible choices: escalate further and risk nuclear war, or accept the new reality that modern naval warfare has become too destructive for sustained conflict. The wreckage tells the story. Advanced technology, artificial intelligence, and overwhelming firepower have made traditional naval battles obsolete. When hypersonic missiles can sink aircraft carriers and drone swarms can overwhelm any defense, the old rules of engagement no longer apply. Modern naval warfare has been proven too destructive for sustained conflict. The South China Sea engagement demonstrated that drone swarms are devastatingly effective, but remain vulnerable to coordinated defenses and unexpected counterstrikes. Both superpowers learned the same lesson. In an age of hypersonic weapons and autonomous systems, There are no winners in direct military confrontation. Subscribe to Military Air for more military scenarios that could reshape global power.